Our next guest has an innovative idea for creating a new path forward and creating jobs in the process. Smart people should build things. So simple, it just might work. And joining us now is Andrew Yang, author of the new book with that same title, and the founder of a company that matches college grads, i.e. smart people, with venture startups and then encourages them to start companies of their own. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. So I wanted to start with just sort of the premise here, and you start your book by saying we've got a problem. Our smart people are doing the wrong things. If we can get them to do the right things, it will transform the country. What are they doing that they shouldn't be? What should they be doing instead?
Well, I'll use myself as an example. When I graduated from Brown in the mid-90s, I didn't know what to do with myself, so I went to law school, which was one of the default paths at that time. And most of my peers made similar choices. Now, in my case, I found out that the law wasn't a great fit for me, or vice versa. And so I transitioned into startup companies where I've been for the last 12 years, including at a national education company that was acquired by the Washington Post. And while I was at that company, I saw that there are really only a handful of paths that most of our national university graduates are pursuing right now. We're sending a majority of our graduates to professional services, that is finance, consulting, and law, and not enough talent to the businesses that actually employ those services. It's like we're investing in many, many layers of frosting and neglecting to bake the cake.
See, now I'm hungry.
Frosting is delicious, though.
Yeah,
frosting is good.
Frosting is part of the best part of the cake. But seriously, I feel like entrepreneurs are a certain kind of person. There's a certain kind of person who has that much drive and that much sort of belief in their ideas that they stake out a claim and they create something. Now, you say almost anybody can be an entrepreneur. And what you're doing in Venture for America is training folks to become entrepreneurs. Can you really train pretty much anybody to be an entrepreneur?
We actually don't believe that anybody can become an entrepreneur. We think that most people are kind of like me, where they could be a number of things depending upon what's being presented to them and what's being supported in their ambitions. But right now we're making it incredibly easy to do some things and very, very difficult to be an entrepreneur. And if we change that, then we can actually change the path that many of our young people pursue.
Well, and in your book, you have suggestions for how we motivate these smart people to actually build things. And one of those suggestions is to support the risk takers out there. What are some of the other things that we should be doing?
Well, certainly at the university level, and one thing I'm very happy to report, having spent a lot of time on college campuses, is young people desperately want to learn how to build things. They just need to have a genuine choice. So what we need to do is we need to present that path to them. And through our organization, Venture for America, we're actually right now recruiting college graduates who want to learn how to build a business and hopefully go on to create opportunities for themselves and others over the coming years.
But there's two entirely different sort of skills at play here. Creating something, creating a better mousetrap is one whole thing. Certain people can do that. And running a corporation, whether a small one or a large one, is an entirely different sort of thing. That's why you have Larry and Sergey, and then Eric Schmidt actually runs the business. I mean, is it hard to sort of combine both those things? Do you have to be able to combine both those things?
Oh, well, you do have to wear many hats as an entrepreneur, someone who's starting a company. Though I would point out that Eric Schmidt actually left Google, and now it's back to being Larry and Sergey. So you can see that in some cases, founders actually do end up being able to serve both of those roles as the executive and the founder.
Yeah, it just depends on the person. I mean, do you think that young people sort of get this already? Like the life of graduating from college and getting your job and being at that job for the rest of your career, I think we all know that is gone. Are young people sort of getting that they need to be more entrepreneurial and create their own opportunities already?
Again, they very badly want to be able to walk this path, but right now this path is really obscure and inaccessible. If you were to go to the average senior in college who wants to become an entrepreneur, what would you suggest to them as the first step? Right now, what they're doing is they're heading down the very well-lit paths because those are the paths that are being presented to them. So if we give them another path that leads them to startup companies where they can apprentice to more experienced entrepreneurs, they'll jump at that. Right now, we already have many, many, many more applicants than we have spots in our program, and we're only 3 years old.
Oh, that's cool.
Andrew, this might be a stupid question, but how do you know if you are a quote-unquote smart person? How do you know if you are one of these people you're talking about that should be building something? How do I know if I should be building something?
Well, a lot of it's whether you're struck by a problem that you'd like to solve. And I think that's what motivates the best of entrepreneurs, is that there's something that they know the world needs, and they won't rest until that they have that. So if you don't have that burning desire, it may be that you need to wait until you're struck by an idea that you are passionate about and driven to create.
So in addition to organizations like yours, are there sort of high-level policy ideas that we should be pushing that will encourage people, you know, out of perhaps the legal profession, Mr. Ari Melber, and into things like entrepreneurship, so that we have a smarter balance that's better for the country?
Get them out of law school.
Well, the first thing, I can relate to that. The first thing we need to do is really start measuring what our smart people are doing, where our talent is going. Right now, we have essentially a one-size-fits-all approach, which is just education, and we figure that education will address all of the issues that we have economically.
Right.
But what's of equal importance that we're not paying attention to is what people are doing with their educations. So if we actually start measuring whether people are heading to early-stage companies and startups account for 2/3 of new net jobs in the U.S. and 13 times more patents per employee, and yet those companies are really not getting the talent they need to expand and thrive.
Yeah, I mean, part of what you're talking about is the difference between a credential and a role. And people will go to law school or business school thinking that credential will get them something. It seems to me like what you're saying is, no, they need to think about the role they want to have after
What they
that.
want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I, like you, Ari, went to law school, and I have to say that the roles I've had haven't really...
credential, Ari?
It is now. Go ahead.
Well, that the role that people have in startups, it changes all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to have the same job for a period of years, you're probably mistaken.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Andrew Yang. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And up next, my thoughts on the real problem for the
Federal Jobs Guarantee does nothing for parents, nurturers, and caregivers. And to me, that's some of the most important work that any of us are doing.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I mean, you know what I think on this issue. I've advocated for UBI. I wrote about it in my book as well.
Really good book. If you have not picked up Krystal's book, you should. It's excellent.
Thank you.
A special shout out goes to our God tier producers over on Patreon. Manuel Carrillo III, Bradley Davis, Justin Zhu, Matthew Gerard, Ahsoka Nelson, Joshua Hare, Alexandra Dembski, and Zach Sargent. If you would like to hear your name at the end of every video, then become a God tier producer of the show today.
Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang. Yeah. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang 2020. Yang Gang.